She Did It by J.T. Lawrence. The suspect. The suspect has one eye swollen shut, and blood highlights in her yellow hair. A split lip that sticks so far out that I want to tuck it back into her face for her. What makes dried blood black? What makes eye skin swell so hard that it buries its own eyeball? Cannibalistic gesture or measure of protection? Too late, eye socket, too late. The suspect stares into space. Saliva shines her chin. She isn't aware of the drool. She's numb. If she's lucky, she's numb. She stares and doesn't see anything. There's nothing to see here. She has seen enough. The suspect was admitted last night. It wasn't the first time. The suspect, you are thinking? Surely you mean the victim. No, I mean the suspect. She was found in a puddle of blood. It was mostly her husband's. What kind of love is this? When the couple's red stuff runs together in tributaries and streams, mixing and morphing into a dark lake of glue. What kind of love is this? Or more correctly, what kind of love was this? For it is no more. When did it end? When did the crimson petal turn to brown? When did the suspect's skull go from whole to cracked? Now there is a spiderweb. A snowflake etched into the bone. You know the story. But maybe not the whole story. Maybe not the exact story. Every snowflake is unique. His skull was cracked too, the husband's. More smashed than cracked. A whole piece of head bone was missing, like a seashell eroded by the sand and tide. I expected to find a sea-brined brain, but it was messier than that. No cool rinsing saline, but instead hot air and insects. Not too many. There wasn't enough time between the deed and the damning. Just a couple of fat black flies. Their wings vibrating right into our itchy ears. Blunt force trauma. That old chestnut. We looked around for the instrument, and the puzzle piece of skull, but it didn't reveal itself. It did not jump up and dance. Isn't it funny that we call it an instrument? As if we could pick it up on a whim and play a tune. A death ditty. A melody of murder. I wonder which song was on when this gory thing was playing out. This blunt game. Every crime has a soundtrack. She had looked dead too, until all of a sudden she wasn't. Mottled, smashed up, but alive. She gasped and chucked up blood, like a possessed puppet in a horror show, like a victim of an exorcism. But not a victim. Not only a victim, anyway. A suspect, too. Yes, you can be both. Her husband was both, too. Who else would engrave the snowflake on his wife's skull? Who else would swell her lip? A third party, I hear you shout. An intruder. An evil bastard intent on grievous bodily harm. It's possible. I have learnt that anything is possible. But evil almost always pitches up at the door with a housecoat on. A comfy old housecoat that smells of home, and is invariably scabbed by custard and a snail trail of last week's roast chicken gravy. Child molested? You want to blame the ice cream truck man. It wasn't him. Girl raped. You point a finger at the faceless trench coat. It wasn't him. Woman battered to within an inch of her life, and sometimes outside of it. You see the perpetrator as one of the others. It wasn't them. Mostly it wasn't them. Mostly it was the father, the uncle, the husband. Mostly the evil is deeply seated inside our circles of love. That's what makes it truly evil. The suspect lifts a broken finger to the shorn part of her scalp, runs a dirty fingernail above her ear. What is she thinking about? Is she replaying last night's events? Is the glimmer of light on her stitched-up face the reflection of the story? How much does she know? And of that, how much will she tell us? Mrs. Long, I say for the third time. Triad, trilogy, troika. Third time lucky, although not for her. She hears me. I can see the faint flicker, but she still keeps staring at the wafer-colored walls. Hospital equipment rattles down the corridor. Metal trolleys and needles scratching paper. Someone's blood pressure cuff exhales. "Janine," I say. It tastes wrong, but it does the trick. She cranes her stiff neck in my direction. One eyeball swivels. It's a pretty eyeball. The other is still a prisoner. She opens her lip balloons to speak, but nothing comes out. "Doesn't answer to married name," I write in my notebook. It's not the standard police issue notebook. Those are useless. I like my books tightly bound. When it comes to notebooks, I appreciate strict bondage. When it comes to sex, not so much. I've tied up enough criminals to put me off handcuffs in the bedroom for good. A ghost of a word escapes her mouth. Then another. Then another. 3 spook words. A phantom triangle. A triple spectre switchback. Things happen in 3s, this is true. I strain my ears. I prime my hammer, anvil, and stirrup. I am ready to listen. Not just to hear, but to listen. There is a distinct difference. I see her teeth are broken too. That wasn't in the report. Perhaps they were not able to open her mouth when she first came in. Perhaps it had been clamped. Perhaps the horror had wired it shut. Teeth, I write down. Broken. I clear my throat. Would you repeat that? I say in the most gentle voice I possess. It does not come easy. It sounds like a grizzly bear trying to sing a lullaby. It does not come naturally to me. Look at me. Look at me. I'm not a tender man. Of course, it could have been an intruder. This is Johannesburg, after all. Sunny South Africa. We are nothing if not a long, festering abscess boiling over with a hot pink pus and frantic, squirming, oily maggots of crime and violence. And don't you dare act disgusted. It is your doing as much as it is mine. If you take exception to anything, it should be your own indifference. At least I'm here, in this hospital room. At least I'm getting my rough hands dirty. It could have been a faceless stranger who burst into this couple's bedroom and gave them matching head traumas. He could have handed them identical blows. 1 for him, 1 for her. 2 for the price of 1. Like monogrammed velour bathrooms made in China. His and hers. Or those old married people who have been together too long and wear matching twin sets with pictures of snowy mountains embroidered on the fronts, replete with a smelly nanny goat, a copper bell at her throat. It could have been die Swart Gevaar, but my gut tells me otherwise. I'd stake my balls on it. And I don't do that lightly. I'd very much like to keep my balls just where they are. I hand the suspect a plastic beaker with a bendy straw. She won't be eating for a while. She is getting all the hydration and nutrients she needs from her IV, but that won't stop her mouth from being as dry as these wafer walls. She blinks her solitary eye at me in thanks, and slurps. Her injuries do not make for delicate drinking. There is more chin dribble. In another lifetime, in another story, in a parallel universe, I would take a soft cotton cloth and wipe her face for her. I would hold her, tell her that the worst is over, that she's going to be okay. But we're not on that particular planet. We're here in this beige private ward, and she is the suspect and I am the cop. And I need to find out what the hell happened to the purple corpse in the refrigerator drawer that is wearing a wedding ring with her name on it. I take the beaker back. It's time to talk. I need to hear those 3 words again to make sure that I didn't imagine them. I angle my body towards her. I steeple my fingers. I wait. I don't tap my feet. She takes a breath, and then winces at the ribs that curl around her chest like an ivory cage for her heart. Those bones are engraved too. When I read the medical report, I pictured her as a scribbled-on skeleton. Old and new fracture scars running all over her bone, and crunchy cartilage like a roadmap to oblivion. How many ribs has she broken? How many arms, legs, cheekbones? How many times can you break a limb before it just won't heal anymore? How many times can you shatter a pelvis before it just gives in and gives up? I pictured her as a tattooed skeleton, so when I came in here I was surprised by her skin and hair, her modest padding, her beautiful eyeball. I did it, she says again. I go back to the top of the page where, hours before I had met her, I had written, "She did it." It wasn't rocket science. I didn't even think it through. Sometimes the deep gut-balls combination just does the work for you. If you can't trust the deep gut-balls combination, then you can't trust anything. The penis, on the other hand, the shaft, is another story altogether. She did it. I had scrawled in shouty uppercase, sure and arrogant, as if it were a title for a new screenplay, or a song. I tick the words. The ink mark is an inverted shark fin. Her breathing is shallow from the nerves, or the hesitation to re-rupture the ribs. She shouldn't be in this much pain. They should give her some more painkillers. I wanted her compos mentis for the questioning, but I'm not a sadist. Besides, I have what I need. I only needed those 3 words. The rest is backstory. The rest doesn't matter. I ring the bell for the nurse. The suspect turns towards me, with some effort, and I'm confronted by her whole face at once. Or, at least, a face that used to be whole. A face that will never be whole again. It's quite a picture. I will myself to not blink, to not turn away from the mess, to not squirm before the crazy quilt that is her new skin. I need to take responsibility for her condition. It was one of us, after all, that did this to her. A fellow human, a fellow man, kin, but not kindred. I killed him, she says. I killed him. She turns her attention back to the beige. I wait for the tears. I wait for her to start rocking and heaving. I wait for her to paint herself with tar. She just stares at the wall. Just when I think that he has finally knocked her into catatonia, she wipes perspiration from her hands and lows in discomfort. A decade rolls by like ancient grey tumbleweed, and a nurse finally arrives. Took long enough, I mumble. He ignores me. What is it about medical people being indifferent to pain? Is it because they see too much of it? Do they become numb by choice or necessity? Can't they see that this woman has been through enough? Look at her! Her skeleton is a scribble, I want to yell at him. Where is the fucking morphine? His nurse's uniform remains stubbornly starched in slow motion. You think she's making it up? I want to yell. You think she's faking it? Why am I not indifferent to the pain? I must see more suffering than these people. That is why I smell of the streets and not the dry mist of alcoholic hand sanitizer. I am agitated by their too clean tunics and their flat empathy, as if they remove their understanding along with the bacteria on their hands, as if they set themselves apart from us, the sad, sorry, roiling society. Quickly, sanitize before you catch it, before you catch a germ of empathy. She's had as much as she's allowed, he says, looking at the chart at the foot of her bed. The next dose will be in 2 hours. The suspect's fists drip with sweat. Fuck that. Fuck what's allowed. I take a step towards the nurse. I am not a small man. Give her more, I say. Now. I will be damned if I will allow another man to cause this woman any more unnecessary pain. I think he's going to stand up to me. I'm ready for it. But then he collects a small bag of clear liquid and hooks it up to her IV line. He leaves. I sit and watch it trickle. I urge the plastic bladder to empty faster. It is too slow, too slow. But then the groaning stops. Gradually the fists unfurl. Blossoming finger flowers. Colour leaks back into her cheeks. We both breathe again. I offer her more water. She refuses. Is there anything else you'd like to say? I ask. I need to get away. I didn't mean to spend so long here in this antiseptic purgatory. I have a job to do. I have other blood to sniff. She swallows. she says again. I killed him. I know, I say. I know. I don't want her to feel guilty. What I really want to say is, I'm glad you killed the son of a bitch. I want to say, I wish you'd done it sooner, before he broke you in half. There is something pulling at her face, at her balloons. I don't want her to cry. I don't want to watch her stretch her stitched-up face. But there is no water in her eyes. The twitching of the lips is not weeping. It is relief. It is triumph. Her eye has stars in it. She has survived. I start my banged-up Hilux with a twist of key, as if I am turning a dagger in someone's stomach. I can't help the violence of my thoughts. Occupational hazard. My soul has seen too much to be pure. I drive out of the hospital after paying 8 rand for parking. Bastards, I think, for making the worried and the grieving pay to visit their loved ones. Does no one in this money-grabbing city have a fucking conscience? The chevron boom shudders skyward. I accelerate, leaving the beautiful eyeball behind. The sensation of the tire's traction on the road is good. I feel like I could drive forever on an open road. Instead, I'm hemmed in by traffic tent zippers and clouds of carbon dioxide, and I almost get T-boned by a taxi with gravel for brakes. Red lights are regarded as a suggestion rather than a rule. No point telling Metro. I wave the taxi off with my middle finger. If he takes exception, he can take it up with a Glock I have resting in sweat-softened leather against my ankle. I have enough warm bullets for everyone. She did it, says Domino. I can't remember why I call him that. It's not like he is freckled or especially entertaining. He's not even Italian. He nudges the file into my hand. He wants me to look at it again. Of course she did it, I say. I thought you had something new to tell me. Oh, I do, he says. He is grandstanding, smug, but I don't know why. Had I missed an important detail at the crime scene? Did you know that he broke her teeth too? I say. Did he? Says Domino. It's not a question. I can feel the minutes ticking by. I've wasted enough time today. I need to get some action. I need to slam a body against my car's bonnet. I wouldn't mind firing my gun either. It's not what it seems, Dom says. You need to look closer. Look closer? She killed her husband in self-defense. The details don't matter. The details always matter, says Dom, as if he is a wise master edifying a recalcitrant student. As if he's goddamn Mr. Miyagi. You just don't want to see it. Spit it out, I say, looking at my watch. I'm getting old. Maybe if you stopped falling in love with your suspects, you'd have a clearer head. I take the folder to the restaurant down the road. Their coffee is good, but their food is terrible. They know to not bother me with a menu. I start from page 1 of the file contents, and make sure I take in every word. Halfway through my second cup, I see the note about broken teeth. So it was in there. I did miss it. What else did I miss? I keep going. My stomach buzzes. I ignore it. I have another cup and I start to get the caffeine sweats. I hate the caffeine sweats. My mind begins to wander, and then I see it. A psychiatrist's name. A telephone number. You saw Janine Long? I say into the handset. She was a patient of yours. The doctor won't discuss her on the phone. I grab my keys and leave a pink note on the table. A troubled young woman, he says to me. I'm still sweating. A walking cliché, I say. Not that she's walking anywhere at the moment. We're in his consulting room that smells of vanilla beans and dollar signs. You think all young women are troubled? He asks. I think everyone is troubled, I say. It's the human condition. The psychiatrist doesn't disagree. I guess we've both witnessed the ugly. Let me guess, I say. I'm going to need a court order before you discuss her particular troubles with me. Not necessarily, he says, uncrossing his legs. What do you need to know? I need to know why she came to in a pool of blood this morning. Her own blood? Asks the duck. Some of it was. The rest was the husband's. Yes. Ah, the doctor says. She killed him? Let me guess. Self-defense? Yes, I say. Self-defense. Ah, you're not surprised? I'm afraid not. You knew it would happen, I say, and you didn't think to notify the authorities. Of course I notified the authorities, he says. How do you think you got my number? How long did the abuse go on for? I ask. I believe it started when she was 14. 14? She knew the victim, her husband-to-be, when she was 14. The shrink shakes his head, begins to say something, then stops. Then, I say, there were others? It wouldn't be the first time a woman chose one abuser after another, like being slung out of one revolving door to be sucked straight into the next. The doctor looks confused. He leans forward, resting his elbows on his thighs. Who exactly, he says carefully, do you think the abuser is? Was, I say. It was her husband. His face pops with surprise. No, he says. No, not at all. It's my turn to look confused. I don't like it. Mrs. Long suffered from Munchausen syndrome. That's when I know what Munchausen is, I say. But it doesn't add up. You're thinking of Munchausen in its narrowest form. It comes in many strains. I don't understand. Mrs. Long wouldn't be happy until she was hospitalized. She learned to do significant damage so that she wouldn't be turned away from the emergency room. She would tell me how she did it. You wouldn't believe the stories. She would physically abuse herself, like cutting. Cutting is different. Don't conflate the two. I tap my feet. With cutting, pain is the required effect. It's an emotional release. It's secretive. Munchausen is the opposite. Munchausens crave medical attention. I find it difficult to believe that all of her injuries are self-inflicted. You haven't seen the state of her. She was knocked out cold. Her teeth were broken, for Christ's sake. A rotted picket fence. You need convincing. Have you seen her medical history? Decades of injuries. In accordance with an abusive marriage. Yes, her syndrome does confound the usual scenario. But she was honest with you. I believe she craved attention from me as much as she did from the orthopedics and the plastic surgeons. How do you know she was telling the truth? They're notorious deceivers, aren't they? Aren't they indeed, he says. I leave the psychiatrist's office, questions strumming my brain. Ignition, acceleration, autopilot. Why kill the husband? Dom says. It doesn't fit with the diagnosis. Shut up, Domino, I say. This is real life. It's messy. Not everything is black and white. Not every psychological profile fits into a neat little box. You're telling me, he says. You're the one with the imaginary friend. Is that what you are? I say, adjusting the rearview mirror so that I can see him sitting upright on the back seat. He's wearing an especially handsome charcoal suit. I don't know what I am, he says. I like to think of myself as a figment of your imagination. Figment. Figment. It's a good word. You're full of shit, I say, moving the mirror back to its original position, concentrating on the road. You do realize, he says, that you've just insulted yourself. The Mini in front of me brakes suddenly, and I almost smash into the back of it. I've got an idea, I say. Let's drop the witty repertoire and talk about the suspect. I told you she was the suspect, Dom says. Is it just me, or is this case not making sense? It's just you, he says. Pretty cut and dried, as far as I can see. You're just hung up. On her. As usual. He yawns without bothering to cover his mouth. The husband's knuckles, I say. They were bruised. Yes, says Dom. And the bedroom cupboards had holes in them. Maybe he was angry. I drum the steering wheel with my fingers. Not convinced. Okay, so, I'm going to give you another clue, says Domino, as if indulging a particularly slow kid. Or rather, I'm going to emphasize a detail you've already skipped over. I stop at a red light. I squint at him in the trembling mirror. I'm waiting. What did you miss the first time around? Everything by the looks of it, I say. Stop with the self-flagellation already. Okay, we couldn't find the puzzle piece, the piece of the husband's skull. Red herring, Dom shouts, right into my ear canal. What else? I think for a while. There was something bothering me. It was her teeth. Why do I keep thinking about her broken teeth? Bingo, he shouts. Her chompers, her pearly whites, her rotten picket fence. What do her teeth have to do with anything? You want me to spell it out for you? God, I can be a bastard. Yes, I want you to spell it out for me. I admit, it's left field. Just get on with it, I say. I feel like I'm driving in circles. Remember that hippie girl you used to date? Brenda. Of course I remembered Brenda. Long straight hair, honey breath, hazelnut nipples. She used to analyze your dreams, right? Says Domino. This had better be going somewhere. And you dreamt that weird tooth dream, where you were keeping all your extra teeth in a tooth mug. I vaguely recollect it. And what did she tell you that was about? Money. It was about money. It was about money, says Dom. What is the supposed root of all evil? Money. Money, says Dom. Not some rare form of Munchausen's? Ha, says Domino. But why the long story? Why lead the psychiatrist down the garden path? Why tell half-truths? She had to tell someone something. She's human, after all. We all spin our own stories. I sigh. Really? I say. Money? Money, 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 says Domino. Show me the money, hit me in the money maker, skip to the money shot. I get it. Do you? I do. She did it for the money. A couple of calls regarding the husband's bank account confirms the theory. Not that she needed it. She was wealthier than he was. I can't believe my deep gut/balls combination let me down, I say. It didn't, says Dom. It said she did it. It just didn't tell you the whole story. I picture the housecoat, this time stained with blood. Already a multimillionaire before she met him, I say. She's never had a job in her life. How does that work? Trust fund kid? Dom has decided he's helped me enough for the day. He left the back seat while I wasn't looking. No, I think. No. She's this wealthy because she's done this before. And she got away with it. Over the past 12 years, 2 large previous payments to her account. Both hefty estates. Who would prosecute a battered wife? She's done this before. She's done it before, and she'll do it again. Third time lucky? Not if I can help it. I jam my foot down. The accelerator touches the floor. I rush past hooting cars. One vehicle in particular reminds me of the fat black flies from this morning. A Peugeot with tinted windows buzzes around me until I shake it off. When I get to the hospital, I drive straight through the parking boom and park in the emergency drop-off zone. I run up the stairs to the private wards and bust down her door. Her bed is empty. Her stuff is gone. Where is she? I yell at the nurse, the one I had given a hard time. Gone, he says. Checked herself out against doctor's orders. We haven't even had time to process the paperwork. She took her IV with, still attached, strung it up in her hired Peugeot. The nurse saunters away, trailing the cold fog of sanitizer. Son of a bitch, I say. He turns around. I knew she was faking something. The end.